It's Talking Pints. I'm joined by Mark Beer, OBE. Well, fancy having a beer on Talking Pints. That's a first. Cheers. Now, Mark, successful, international, lawyer, businessman, and you've spent time working in parts of the world about which most of us know almost nothing. Tell us about Kazakhstan. You've done extensive work in Kazakhstan. You're a legal advisor to the Supreme Court there. I mean, it's a name. Most people would struggle to find it on the map, and yet things are happening there, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it's the 9th largest country in the world. It's the largest landlocked country.
Amazing.
It's incredible. And what most people don't know is that part of their legal system is run by Brits. Harry Wolff, who was the Lord Chief Justice here, set up an English language common law system. Lord Mance is running that now. So in terms of doing business through Kazakhstan into Central Asia, where the returns are about averaging 22% at the moment per year, which is phenomenal, the historic problem was, is it safe?
Yeah.
You know, people didn't speak Russian or Kazakh or Uzbek. But now with the English language environment that they've created, with English judges and the like, you can now access 22% returns with a safety of knowing that your business is protected.
Well, you see, don't say that we don't tell people things on this programme they haven't heard before. You've been heavily involved in the UAE, heavily involved in Dubai, places like that. So much money going there. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's all around the world. I think citizens are starting to get frustrated that the services that they're paying for aren't worth the money that they're paying, you know, towards them. And it's that sort of the independence, the sovereignty of the citizens coming to the rise.
The National Health Service is perfect, isn't it?
Well, it's £2,750 a person for every man, woman and child in this country. So, yes, it's a fabulous system, primary and secondary care, but £2,750 per person on value, one has to look at that. The same, you know, we could talk about ambulances now. You know, if you had the opportunity to buy an ambulance service privately, you could get it probably for less than the cost of the service that we're getting. So what's happening, Nigel, is that people are starting to look wherever they are in the world and saying, for the money I'm contributing towards the centre, am I getting a return?
No, Mark, I am seeing, you know, people in their late 20s, early 30s leaving the country, going elsewhere. Yeah. They think they're paying too much tax for too little return. It's a real problem. Your experience of business, genuinely global. Next week, it's Davos and the world, the evil World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab, who wants to make us all poor but thinks we'll be happy. The Great Reset. Tell us about the WF very briefly.
It's an institution that started as a think tank, and it's grown and it's enormously influential. And I was associated with it. I sat on their Justice Committee looking at reforms that could take place across the world that would drive economies and drive investment and drive opportunity. And it's grown into a very powerful force. But I think you probably know more about it than most.
Look, you know, I am suspicious of too many decisions being taken at a global level beyond the reach of voters. You know, that's what, for me, the Brexit thing was all about. I mean, I believe in international trade. I worked in international trade for years, but it's about that balance. And I think there is a suspicion and a feeling that big business has become just too interlinked with government and major decisions. So that, I think a lot of that suspicion is around that. But look, you know, Mark, our place in the world, we made a decision in 2016 that we'd formulate our own trade policy, make our own decisions, something that I believed for decades could be to our advantage. How do you think we're doing?
Well, it's about the implementation. The concept, fine, but the implementation has been shambolic, utterly shambolic. But that's not to say there isn't significant opportunity. Depending on the data, and it's difficult to know which is correct, but 95% of businesses in the UK don't export globally. Yeah. You know, 5% to the EU, but the rest, not really. So there is a significant opportunity into high growth markets. Central Asia, 22% returns, risk adjusted 8%. Middle East, higher than that. And we've got such talent in this country, such brilliant, such well-educated people, such phenomenal service sector, brilliant manufacturing sector, aerospace sector, and yet they're not accessing the opportunities that are available to them. And I think, part of the role I see now, having come back to the UK in 2018, is helping business succeed globally, helping them to enter markets safely and to grow in those markets and make more jobs and pay more tax.
In terms of our global position, done correctly, Brexit could be a big benefit, couldn't it?
Done correctly, of course Brexit could be a big benefit.
Yeah, but
done correctly, trade is a big benefit, not only to the creation of jobs and opportunity here and the payment of tax to pay for the services here, but in terms of spreading the excellence. Look at education. Look at the phenomenal educational institutes we have here, say at a university level, and look at how well they travel around the rest of the world. And that ability of us to transplant something so special that we've grown over hundreds and thousands of years here and improve the lives of others around the world and make a bit of money doing it, it's phenomenal, but we're not doing enough of it.
No, I have to say, I've been very frustrated by the sort of inertia that I see coming from that building over there and Downing Street. Now, you are described as a futurist, as somebody who can help us sort of decode the future. Part of that future is clearly going to be blockchain, isn't it? How big a development is that?
Well, I think as barriers, boundaries and borders are going up, as tariffs are on the increase, as we're sort of deglobalising from a physical trade perspective, as governments are imposing more control into their environment than consensus. It's about coercion. I coerce you to pay your taxes because if you don't, I'll punish you. And I'll coerce you to pay, the tariff for importing goods.
Or I'll put a prepayment meter in your home.
Or I will issue an order to put a payment to make you pay more than anybody else, right? Yeah. So as government is more about control, and as that control is driven by boundaries and borders and the tariffs that go with it, commerce will look to find a different way of doing business. And the way that they're finding is now using digital decentralized business platforms. Now, the blockchain houses cryptocurrencies, which are speculative, stable currencies, which are pegged to a fiat currency, but are still digital. But more importantly than that, you can house your contract in there. Now, if your contract is housed across 2,000 servers in 50 countries, no individual state can gain access to it and start to interfere with it and to challenge it. And you and I can now set up a company on a satellite in space. So we can have a company set up on a satellite in space, immune from the control of the nation. We can run a contract using digital assets and a digital contract on the blockchain of which no nation has control. And what does it do? It adds about 3% efficiency to the supply chain because I'm not having to deal at each border with another set of tariffs and complexities. So when we talk about blockchain in the context of Bitcoin, I'm not necessarily a fan. I think there's too much volatility in there for it to gain acceptance. But when I talk about digital currencies as a conduit to conduct business seamlessly around the world, overcoming the barriers and boundaries and borders that are on the rise.
There's huge change coming.
It's a huge opportunity.
There's massive change coming, isn't there?
Yeah.
Absolutely huge change. It's interesting. I actually think for the last 50 years, apart from the internet, we haven't really seen huge technological advances, but I suspect with AI and everything else, we're on the verge of some big stuff. All of which worries me, Mark. So many jobs that people do are going to be they're just going to disappear, aren't they?
Well, it is about having a flexible workforce, isn't it? It's about having a workforce sufficiently well educated that they can adapt and adopt. There was the saying, I think it came from the World Economic Forum.
They never give up, you see.
There's something like 50% of kids going into education today will do a job that doesn't exist today. That was the kind of number. It may have been more or less. But the key to it is, if we're training our children to be creative and to be flexible and training them to think more broadly, to be adaptable, then they're likely to succeed in a world which is ever-changing and changing faster. If we continue, as we teach lawyers still today, learn historic cases, then they become essentially worthless for that knowledge because, as we've seen from ChatGPT and OpenAI, a computer is far more able to analyse vast data sets and produce an outcome.
Scary, but true.
What we offer is humanity. That's what we offer, you and I and the audience. We offer humanity, mercy, compassion. We haven't got AI to deliver that yet. So we know that robotic judges are up to 41% more accurate than human judges. That's a fact. That's proven. But what they can't do is deliver mercy.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Absolutely.
Might be a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you.